Listening Library presents Marvel Monsters Unleashed Compilation, The Gruesome Gorgilla, Beware the Glop, and When Trull Attacks, by Stephen Behling. Read for you by Cherise Boothe.
Prologue. Have you ever had one of those days? You know the kind. The kind of day where you're off doing your own thing one minute, and the next you find yourself soaring over the Pacific Ocean via repulsor power in a desperate race against time to extinguish an oil rig fire? We've all had that kind of day, right? That's precisely what Tony Stark was thinking from inside the Iron Man armor. Not an hour ago, he had received a distress call from the Coast Guard. Captain America and the other Avengers were elsewhere, engaged in a battle against a subterranean creature called the Minotaur. With the rest of the team busy and no one else available to handle the emergency, Stark donned his armor and took to the skies to fight fire with iron. Fighting an oil rig fire may not be as fun as fighting the Minotaur, Tony thought to himself, but it's not nearly as embarrassing as having to tell everyone that I fought a guy who calls himself the Minotaur. Up ahead, he could see thick black smoke on the horizon. The oil rig in question belonged to a company called Roxxon. Tony had dealt with Roxxon in the past. They were a shady corporation engaged in lots of shady business. They had even sponsored the creation of some supervillains, like Orca and Manticore. For all Tony knew, the oil rig might not even really be an oil rig. Maybe it's a cover for some ominous experiment? Nah, Tony thought. I'm just being paranoid. But remember what they say. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. Rerouting power reserves to his repulsors, Iron Man accelerated toward the billowing clouds of black smoke. Soon the oil rig itself came into view, growing closer with each passing second. "Iron Man!" came a voice over Tony's communication system. The sudden, unexpected sound startled Tony. "This is Iron Man. I'm not here right now, so if you could leave your name and number at the—" "This is the Coast Guard," said the voice urgently. "We've taken everyone off the rig except for one person. They refuse to leave. Can you save them?" Iron Man glanced at the ocean below and saw two Coast Guard cutters loaded with rescued oil workers. They were heading away from the burning rig, which loomed ahead of the armored Avenger, flames burning brightly as the black smoke billowed upward. The centerpiece of the rig was a tall tower. Activating his visual scanners, Iron Man could make out the figure of a person at the top of the tower, waving their arms. "First stop, the tower," Iron Man said. He flew through the dense smoke and cut the power to his repulsors, coming to a soft landing on a platform atop the tower. He saw a man wearing a white jumpsuit with a full head mask. It immediately struck Tony as odd. The guy looked like he should be working in a laboratory studying strange diseases, not working on an oil rig. "I hear you don't want to leave," shouted Iron Man over the din of the fire. "How about you tell me why after I've rescued you?" He extended his right gauntlet toward the man. To Iron Man's surprise, the man backed away. "They left me," the man said, nearly hysterical. "They left me. Now, he's coming!" He pointed beneath them. "Who's coming?" Iron Man said sharply. "You mean there's someone else? We've got to get them." "They've set him free! We have to leave, now!" the man shouted. If you're at all confused, imagine how Iron Man must have felt. "Set what free?" he shouted, as flames licked the bottom of the platform they were standing on. He moved to grab the man, but as he did so, something swiped Iron Man from behind. It knocked the Avenger off his feet and onto the hard metal surface. Shaking it off, Iron Man looked up just in time to see an enormous hairy hand reach for him. Before he could act, the hand grabbed Iron Man. The Golden Avenger tried to break free, but the giant hand shook him like a rag doll, leaving Iron Man thoroughly disoriented. "What in the—" he said, As he struggled to get a look at the thing that was giving him the worst case of vertigo since that time he rode the world's largest roller coaster with Hawkeye. Catching his breath, Iron Man looked quickly at his helmet's heads-up display. The HUD showed exactly what he thought. Whatever was shaking him to pieces was wreaking havoc on his armor's systems. This had to stop. Now. Iron Man fired a few rapid repulsor bursts at the hand, and he heard something shriek. The sound was booming. The hand let go, and Iron Man activated his boot repulsors to take to the air. He flew up and saw the man in white cringing in fear from the giant hand which was about to grab him. I don't know what that hand is connected to, Iron Man thought, but I'd rather not stick around and find out. In an instant, he was next to the man in white. He grabbed him by his jumpsuit just before the giant hand could swat him away. Another burst of repulsor fire gave Iron Man a little room to maneuver. He jumped off the platform with the man in white just as his repulsors kicked on. Flying away from the burning rig, Iron Man headed toward one of the Coast Guard ships with the man in his arms. "I'm gonna bet there's a pretty interesting story behind all of this," he said to the man. "How about I drop you off and you tell me all about it after I put that fire out?" Hovering over one of the ships, Tony dropped the man onto the deck. The man was caught by a couple other people wearing similar white jumpsuits. That's when Tony noticed something else. Something strange. The Coast Guard boats didn't seem to have any Coast Guard personnel on them. The only people he could see on the ship were the men in white jumpsuits. An explosion from the oil rig drew Iron Man's attention, leaving him no time to ponder this weird development. He double-timed it back to the oil rig and flew once more into the chaos of growing black smoke and flames. He steeled himself for an attack as he prepped his armor to fight the fire. To Iron Man's great surprise, there was no sign of the giant thing that had attacked him. It was like it never existed. How could something so big simply disappear? He thought. As Iron Man tried to wrap his brain around his circumstances, he activated his gauntlets. Thin streams of an oxygen-depriving chemical sprayed outward. Iron Man worked his way from the tower down to the oil rig proper, aiming for the source of the fire. Slowly, the flames began to die out. "Worst day ever," Iron Man said. He tried to reach the Coast Guard boats on his communications systems. There was no response. It was like they never existed. From aboard one of the Coast Guard boats, a man clad in a white jumpsuit watched the events on the oil rig via holographic monitor. He watched Iron Man slowly, methodically put out the flames on the rig. "Well," said a voice over the computer, "how did our little test go?" The man in white shifted in his seat. "Iron Man didn't know what hit him," he said. "He thought this was a real oil rig. He didn't expect to find a monster waiting for him." "Brilliant," said the voice. "We're almost ready to unleash it on the world. Is it safe?" "Arrangements have been made," replied the man in white. "It is safe. We're en route to you, and we'll deliver it in a matter of days." "Good," said the voice. "All goes to plan." Under the veil of night, you notice things you didn't in the harsh light of day. Isn't that odd? Like sounds, for instance. Perhaps precisely because we can't see as well in the dark, our other senses compensate. We rely more on our hearing. Every little sound becomes a symphony to our ears. The forest overflows with sounds at night. Crickets, animals, wind whipping through trees. And anyone who found themselves walking through this particular forest on this particular night would hear them all. But they would be surprised to hear other sounds, sounds that weren't so familiar. Like the horrible cracking sounds of a pair of 100-year-old trees being uprooted from the ground. Towering giants that had overlooked the forest were now tossed aside like a child's toys. Then another unfamiliar sound. an unearthly growl.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?